Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening out there in front of the computers, mobile phones, whatever. My name is Karina. Once again, a warm welcome to a late night session of the Matura stream. Today's topic is communication, not energy, as the insert says, but anyway, you'll see. Okay, welcome back. As I said, the very nice insert in the beginning as well as now said something about energy, which will be the topic for after the Christmas holidays. We will probably do another cycle on environment, because energy and renewable energies are sort of like they go together kind of. I think I kind of messed up the plan, so it's my fault at the end of the day. But you'll also need communication for your exams anyway, so that's an important topic. So I'll quickly give you a quick overview of what's going to happen tonight. Why is this green halo there again? Anyway, we did 2 streams on communication already. I will kind of try and sum it up a little for you. So what topics are there in like the broader topic of communication? What can you expect? Like what topics could come up in the exams? What topic would I, have a look at, or would be advisable that you have a look at? We'll have a look at the exam task. Nothing new there. It's a classic standard exam. Those of you who have seen trial exams with me before know what they look like. And the actual trial exam, where it's Tina's turn again, I'll introduce you to her a little later. So the topic of communication is a quite broad one. I think our topic for tonight, the topic of the trial exam, is the most classic one. It's about social media. I tried to incorporate the classic media, or I tried to include newspapers and reading and classical like books, proper books in paper, not any like online or Kindle versions. I tried to include media, or that aspect of media as well, but not only. It's mainly about social media, as I said. So some topics that are very popular in the exams that fail. That moment when you misspell the simplest word of all. So communication, of course. Social media are a great topic. So is the internet. How have social media and the internet in general, how did they change communication? How has, going back a couple of years, how did the email change communication? That's also in the books, for as far as I know. So what influence do social media and the internet have? Of course, as always, there's the pros, but there's also the cons. Especially when you talk about social media, like you read stories about cyberbullying every now and then. They usually happen via Facebook or other social media platforms, because you have letters, so you have text and visuals go together. You can send pictures, which pictures usually do a lot of harm. So cyberbullying is definitely an issue in that. But of course, it also the internet and social media, of course, also have or are part of the broader topic of globalization, which is a topic in your exams as well. Through the internet and through social media, news spreads much earlier than, or much quicker than they would in traditional media. So it's social media and the internet, of course, they do have their share in the overall topic of globalization as well. So much for that. If I were you, I would definitely tablets. A difficult one. Broad sheet. What's wrong with me today? Not that hard a word. If I were you, I would also have a look into the concepts of tablets and broadsheets. They are, we're talking about newspapers here. tabloids being the really bad ones, like the newspapers that have like really big headlines and a lot of pictures, not much text, and if it is text, then it is not very, like, it's not high quality journalism. The broadsheets are their opposites, so newspapers like The Guardian in England or the New York Times in America, they are the big, like the good ones. Very challenging text, very good journalism as well, fewer pictures, or up to like hardly any pictures. There's hardly any pictures in the New York Times, for example. You should probably know the concepts of those. Maybe also have a look into Austrian newspapers, because usually the examiners or the exam board try to like establish a relationship to your life. And yeah, well, Austrian newspapers are what you're most frequently confronted with. Consumption. How do you consume the media? Like, how do you read newspapers, if you read any? Do you still have like the paper version of it, or do you read the news online? That would be something to talk about as well. What else? Books. Books are definitely still an issue. Like, how could you encourage people to read a bit more? Like, what do you read? What types of literature is out there? Yeah, I think that's the most important aspects, really. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, so that's, you could also, especially in the issue of cyberbullying, you could also maybe in like, oh yeah, that's a topic for internet, really. Before you, or in the preparation time, or in the preparation for your exams, you could actually also have a look at actual cases of cyberbullying. There's a few very popular ones, or some cases that gained popularity, or that became quite famous on the internet, because first of all, they were like, the whole thing happened online, and then the victims decided to publish their like experiences, and so the cases, there's like more than enough cases out there. There was also a quite recent example where a boy got bullied. I think it was Facebook or Instagram. I don't know. Can you bully people on Instagram? Yeah, I guess you can. So. Okay. Well, you may have noticed I'm not an Instagram user, but then I guess you can bully people on Instagram as well. There was a case of a boy, he got bullied and kind of published his story, if you want to call it that. And there was like literally hundreds of celebrities who kind of jumped the bandwagon on that and kind of said, hey, well, we support you, we are there for you. Some like singers invited him to concerts and so on and so forth. There was like really, really famous names, starting with Cristiano Ronaldo and Snoop Dogg and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of people supporting him, which is a really good thing, and definitely speaks for social media, or proves the point that social media can be a very, very good thing as well. So yeah, try to find some real cases to support your arguments. Also make sure that you have an opinion on newspapers, on reading in general. Maybe also prepare something on your own reading habits. The fewer questions catch you off guard, the easier it is at the end of the day, and the more prepared you are, the better you sound, really. Good. Let's have a look at today's task, so point 2 of today's schedule. Topic, or the overall topic, is communication. Social media is like it's the focus point of the whole thing. It could also say, I don't know, Austria's newspaper landscape, whatever. It could be anything. The social media part is kind of replaceable, so the overall topic and then the more specific one. I hope you guys don't see everything in green out there. As always, you have a situation. The situation I chose because the topic of social media lends itself perfectly for a classroom situation, because if we simulate a classroom situation, then you can be the people that you are, like you're in an actual classroom, sharing classes with your friends or with your peers. So that's kind of a real life situation. In your English class, you've been discussing the issues of teenagers and the media that they mainly consume. So, I don't know, the talk was about whether or not you still read good old-fashioned books, whether or not you still have a subscription to the old newspaper, or if whatever you do online. There's a lot of people who say, well, I don't really need real physical newspapers, if you want to call them that. I have everything. My Facebook account gives me access to Der Standard and Die Presse. Sounds really weird in German, and all the other good or not so good Austrian newspapers. So that was the talk, and you kind of got interested in it. Your teacher maybe showed you a couple of statistics that talks about media usage. You thought, well, interesting topic. You think that this is interesting and you need a topic for a presentation anyway, so you decided to have a look into the math. You were especially interested in the role of the traditional media as opposed to social media or media in 2017. The traditional media would be newspapers mainly, and well, maybe if you extend the topic a little, maybe it depends on where the conversation, especially in the dialogue part, goes. Also, text messages and good old phone calls versus WhatsApp and FaceTime and whatever. So you could also include that if it happens to crop up in the topic. Okay, the individual long term, so the presentation part, the monologue part. Evaluate the importance of new media as compared to the traditional ones. Why are social media so popular? What makes reading traditional newspapers, traditional books so comparatively unpopular with a lot of people, not with everyone, of course. Analyze the importance of social media in your lives. You have a text. The text gives you a few paragraphs about what made social media so popular, really. There's a few, nothing new here. We are not reinventing the wheel, but there's maybe a few arguments that you may have not thought about. It talks a lot. The text talks about a lot about Facebook and Twitter, because they were kind of the first ones out there, and kind of talks about the way on how Facebook and Twitter revolutionized communication, revolutionized the word. There's also the Kardashians coming up, of course. They always do. Yeah, that's the second point. Already, the headlines are quite telling. Already, headlines kind of tell you where the text's going to go. Yeah. But that's Timna's tasks to deal with a little later. Give an overview of what types of social media there are and what they're mainly used for and who their target group is. So you can talk a little bit about social media that you actually use. If it was your Matura task, you could, because whatever you know from experience or whatever you have tried out yourself or haven't, you know best and can kind of talk about. And that was actually supposed to be on one page. Anyway, in the interaction part, you have a discussion with your teacher, so your examiner, who is an avid reader, and after your presentation, you kind of engage into a discussion on how teenagers could be encouraged to take up reading books, like traditional books, but also newspapers, because I think at the end of the day, there are still some pros to traditional newspapers. I guess there are, especially depending on what newspaper you read online, but there's a few that you need a subscription to, or there's a few newspapers where you only have limited access if you don't have said subscription. So there is disadvantages as well, and we kind of want you to read more. There's statistics as well. Books and Tageszeitungen, so daily newspapers, aren't really doing very well. So that's the statistics that is kind of the basis of the discussion. Well, your teacher sees that Tageszeitungen and Bücher and Zeitschriften are definitely at the bottom end of the scale. And yeah, that's what should spark a discussion a little. Well, in the discussion, you suggest types of literature that would be interesting to like a target group from, let's say, 10 to 17, because that's when pupils are usually in school. Advantages of reading, the benefits it brings. Those of you who like reading will find that easier, I guess. Discuss the utility of reading in classrooms. If you think back to your school times, like, was reading in German fun, wasn't it? Was there any reading in the foreign languages going on? Did your English teachers also know? Did they bring you literature to read? It doesn't have to be entire books, but can also be short stories and so on and so forth. And yeah, do you think it's beneficial, yes or no? Okay, I'll quickly show you the task. So, whoops, no I don't, because I messed it up. Okay, I think I messed it up anyway. So you have the situation, you're in an English classroom, or she will be in an English classroom, and she will be doing a presentation about the importance of social media, what social media are there, how are they used, what target group uses them. Discussion with the teacher about the more traditional media. Here I was trying to kind of create a link between old and new, so that was the plan behind that. Yeah, are you ready?
I am.
Grand. Well, better than my green halo, like the black background thing. Oh, it's gone, fantastic. Hello, so that's Timna, say hi to Timna. Well, it's not her first English exam.
Here, let me just put that away. That's better.
Brilliant. So yeah, as I said, that's her. It's not her first exam, so she knows how the ropes are running really. If you're ready, we're gonna get going. As always, I would like to give you a very warm welcome to your umpteenth Matura exam. There's been a few.
Thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure you'll be passing with flying colours as always. If you don't mind, could you tell us who you are, what you're here for, and what the topic is?
First, so my name is Timna. I am here to do my oral exam in English. And the topic today will be communication, especially social media, new media. Why is it important nowadays, and how does it compare to traditional media? And that's that basically. Should I just start with the individual long term?
Please tell us something about the importance of new media, as we all find them so tremendously important.
Exactly. So as you just said, the new media do have quite a big importance in our daily life nowadays, as they're just very accessible, very quick to access, easy to access, cheap as well, which just means that more and more people are preferring them over traditional media, for example, like over books and printed media that you have to buy, that you have to get somewhere, that you have to carry with you, instead of just looking at your phone, for example. Which also means that reading has become is becoming less and less popular, because there's also more and more content in video form, coming through social media, through the internet, and less actual writing, which is because if you read something, you have to concentrate, you have to kind of think about what's happening in that text yourself. Whereas if you're looking at a video, basically somebody's telling the story for you. You don't have to invent anything. You just have it all right there to look at, which is very easy for lazy people, which aren't we all lazy. So that's how it has come to basically us using new media way more than traditional media, especially social media as well. Which is a way of communicating, sharing experiences, sharing your life, how great your life is, which I think is something that people wanted to share for the hundreds, thousands of times forever, basically, that their life is amazing, and yeah, their life is better than anyone else's, which is now made very easy through things like Instagram, Snapchat, and all that, which is why we obviously, all of us, or many of us, really like to use those social media outlets, especially also because you have the possibility to think before reacting to something, not like in speech where you really have to like say something there and then. But if you're writing, you can kind of think about what's the best answer to give here and all of that. So yeah. There's a lot of different types of social media out there, actually. The two main ones I use mostly are Facebook and Instagram. Facebook nowadays is, in my opinion, really only for staying in contact with people, especially people from all around the world, and also maybe looking at the news or viral posts that are getting posted on there. Not so much anymore is it for kind of posting things yourself, really. That's actually now moved on to Instagram, which is where you basically post pictures about your life, what you're doing, whatever things you like, and that's just something that I really enjoy. I have to say I do maybe overuse it sometimes. But, it's just how it is. Then also there's of course Snapchat, which we all know, which is very similar to Instagram, only that you see the pictures only for I think a few seconds and then they're gone, and you have to react immediately, basically, because otherwise you forget what the person sent you. So it's more like a real conversation, and it's more for like posting or sending bit silly pictures and all that, so joking around. And yeah, those are really the main social media outlets that are out there. There's of course lots and lots more that people in different countries are using, people of different, I don't know, interests and all that. So there's really lots that can be used in that. Yeah.
Do you think that which social media platform has the younger users? Would you say Facebook or Instagram and Snapchat? Is there an age difference?
I think Facebook is more for all ages, I would feel like, and Instagram and Snapchat are more for younger people, I feel like.
Okay.
Because it's just, well, of course it depends on the interests, but usually there's more younger people around on Instagram.
Target groups, yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned Facebook and the fact that you can actually think before you write.
Yeah.
Do you use the editing function after your comments? Because I do that all the time. Like, I post something and then I edit it once again, because I either notice that there's a comma missing or I thought about something, more funny.
I don't post that much on Facebook, so I don't really. Like, I can't really say a lot about that, but do you see if you've edited it or not? Okay, so then I feel like I wouldn't. It depends on whether your like error is that bad that you would rather see that.
Well, my friends know that I always edit writing because I hate spelling mistakes and I hate bad German. Then I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound nice. We have to change that. Well, anyway, because there's of course more than only Facebook and social media, and there's also really more than newspapers. What about books? When you were younger, like around 10, 11, 12, did you read?
I did, yeah. I did read a lot, especially over the summer holidays, but also in general. I really liked to read. We went to the library a lot, me and my sister. And yeah, we did really, really enjoy reading.
So why don't teenagers nowadays read more, or like teenagers, kids, teenagers?
Well, that's the thing about like having to read versus looking at a screen. Of course, looking at a screen is way more attractive and easy, and And yeah, and that's what is very accessible to teenagers nowadays. So when I was younger, I didn't really have anything else to do but to read if I was bored. Of course, I could play or do something, but then, like, if you don't have anything to do anymore, you read, because that's basically imagining a story, like watching a film in your head. Nowadays, you can just watch a film on your phone, so you don't really have to imagine it anymore.
That's true.
Why
That's good point. Was there reading going on in school when you were younger?
Yeah, definitely. A lot in German classes, but also in like English, French.
Okay.
There was definitely some reading going on, and I feel like it really helps, especially with vocabulary, with like the use of the language. Like, you see how it's really used in real life, and I think it really helps.
Is there a type of, like, I kind of understand that people, you know, if you're 16, you probably wouldn't want to read the original version of Goethe's Faust in German, and you probably also don't want to read The Merchant of Venice, like, you just don't. Is there anything that you think would be interesting? Like any types of literatures that's...
Well, especially like maybe topics that are more relatable for young people, topics that have something to do with teenage life and those problems and all of that. Modern topics, something that you would read in your spare time as well, I think would be way more interesting for teenagers to read, obviously.
So going away from the really tough hard stuff and...
Well, I mean, you kind of have to look at the classics at least a little bit, but like maybe not that much.
So
not that deeply. You
know. Do you think that graphic novels would be interesting? You know, you have like the kind of read like comics, but then a little more...
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, especially for maybe people who are just starting to get into reading, because you have more pictures, it's not that kind of hard, or you kind of can ease into it.
Yeah, that's true. I love them. Mm-hmm. Like, there's people who say that they're not literature, but I think they are.
Oh, of course.
You mentioned vocabulary as a good thing about reading. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you could think of? Like,
well, I mean, it's good for your creativity. Like, you imagine things, you gain new knowledge about topics that are in books. You gain different, like, in vocabulary also expressions and use of language and all of that. So I think it's really a lot of benefits that come from reading.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah.
Would you also read in foreign languages? Like, you said something about reading in French, but you didn't say whether or not you liked it or whether you thought it was...
I did like it because, as I said, it's really useful for seeing the language, how it is used in like real life, in real French literature.
Do you think people actually do their reading homeworks, or is it more like find a decent summary on Wikipedia and, you know, copy paste?
Well, it depends. I think for one, it depends on whether or not you like the topic, if it's interesting to you, and then also there's people that are just not readers, just don't like to read, and there's other people that do. So that you can't really change, but I think, well, some people do, some people don't. You know.
I always found that really frustrating, like knowing that people wouldn't, you know, like, can you... What about newspapers? Do you read paper newspapers or
not really.
Phone newspapers?
I read phone newspapers.
Phone newspapers?
Because they're so easy to access, and I have this subscription for a newspaper that sends me their headlines in the morning, so that I can look at them and then I can touch them and see the whole article, which is really easy, just looking at it on your phone instead of buying it from somewhere, and, you know. Yeah,
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you see any advantages that online newspapers have over the normal ones, apart from being a very convenient thing, obviously, but any other?
Yeah, well, they're very, they can update very quickly, they can have access to the stories, like, in a very, you know, just when it happens, you can already write about it, which is really, really useful, because, for example, in newspapers, it's usually the next day that you read about it. Yeah, what else? Well, there's not really much else. Of course, it's very convenient and all of that. But
do you think we will have paper newspapers in like 10 years' time?
I'm not sure. I feel like maybe we won't, but then again, that's such a surreal thought that I can't really imagine it.
True.
But like if we are the next generation, we're not really using them anymore, then who is
who is going to that's a good point.
I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I hope that they stick around for a while.
Yeah.
Like
you like them?
I like newspapers. Yeah. Well, there's not that many that I really read. I have friends from abroad send me some Spanish newspapers every now and then because for practice purposes and stuff.
Yeah, that's
but
a good idea.
yeah, that's what that's about it. But I'd still be sad if they weren't around anymore. Really.
Yeah, I think it'll take it'll take a lot of time.
Hopefully. Well then, that was it. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Goodbye.
That was a very nice way of ending the exam actually. It was kind of like kicking her out basically. What I'll do is quickly tell you what I really liked about her exam or what she did very well, what would be advisable for you to include. One thing is the good old overview at the very beginning of the exam. Of course, the interlocutors, they do have an outline, like they have the same sheet of paper than you do, which means that they have the bullet points in front of you, or in front of them in that case. But at the end of the day, it's a presentation, which means that we are kind of faking a real classroom situation. And in a normal classroom, people don't really have the keywords, like, the people would not know what you are going to talk about. You may project it on the wall by PowerPoint or whatever, but they won't have the keywords in front of them. They won't have a clear outline, and it's a simulation of a classroom situation. So that means give an overview of what you're going to talk about, because that makes it a bit more realistic. One thing that she did really well was she introduced a new topic, something that I did not really think about, or something that I wasn't asking for really, and that was the whole aspect with the internet and the videos. She mentioned videos that you can watch on the internet. She mentioned YouTube without directly really referring to it, which is good because that definitely did change the way we watch television as well, and television is part of the media. So the internet and online streaming services and so on and so forth, they definitely did change the media landscape in terms of television. So bringing up YouTube and other platforms where you can watch series and films on is a quite good idea. You could also mention stuff like Netflix and Amazon Prime and so on and so forth, because, well, I think that they're quite useful for especially learners of English, because you can watch stuff in English, which is then again good for your language skills. So that also kind of revolutionized the media world a little bit. Also the option to watch stuff in original language, which, yeah, well, I guess movies don't get better by translating them or by dubbing them. So I guess that's an advantage that you could bring up in the exam as well, especially if you're a person who knows a lot about series and so on and so forth. Maybe your interlocutor does as well, and you can kind of, the dialogue, you engage in the conversation. I also jot down the word news, but I have no idea what I wanted or why I did that. Well, anyway. So, yeah, she gave a very clear overview of what she was going to talk about. Important for you in your exams as well is to mention all the bullet points, because one of the 4 criteria in your in the evaluation is task achievement. If you do not talk about the bullet points, task achievement is you get very low points for that. So make sure that you mention everything. Elaborate on the one bullet point that you feel the best about, that you know the most about. 4 to 5 minutes is not an awfully long time, especially because you have to introduce yourself in the beginning as well. So you can definitely kind of, you have to talk about them, but only briefly touch upon bullet points that you think, well, yeah, I don't really know my way around them so well, and then elaborate and talk a lot about the ones that you know something about. Good, yeah. I think, let's have a look at, oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. There's nothing else I have to really tell you, so I wish you a fantastic Christmas break. This is it from our side until next year. Thank you very much and good night.
Fast.
Fantastisch.